Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another tutorial of Ucitations. Today we will learn about Swift programming language in detail. I have created some tutorials and merged it in this video so that you can learn it properly in one go. Classes, structs, closures, functions, and all that you will find in this one tutorial. So what are you waiting for? Just play and learn to code. So here is a playground file in which we will learn how to write code in a Swift programming language. So this is the key. What is this key? Says var. The abbreviation of var is variable. What is variable? For now we have to just learn the variable is something that stores some data, right? How to store some data in a variable? We have to initialize variable using this keyword var. We have to initialize some variable name. So this is the variable name greeting, and after this we have to place equals to. Equals to is to denote what is the value of this key. Hello playground. Var is a variable, right? And greeting is a variable name. Equals to denotes or represent value. So this line of code is initializing a variable greeting that have a value hello playground. So let's create a variable var channel equals to, we will use shift and add the quotations, double quotations, because we are initializing a type that need this quotations. This quotations means we are initializing a variable in a string data type. What is data type? We will cover it in the next session, right? So we are initializing here Ucitations. So what is the variable here? Variable is a channel and the value of channel is Ucitations. So let's create another variable like Facebook equals to like our page. So this is the simple text I have wrote under this quotation, means a string variable. So what is the type of this variable? The type of this variable is a string. A string is a data type. So let's say we have to initialize a variable a, and then we have to indicate that there is a digit in this variable. So is it a string type? No, this is not a string type, because when we need to store some value in the string, we have to present or we have to create quotations. But if we have to create here a string variable, what we will do, we will just add the quotations, right? So there are multiple data types in which different type of data is stored. A string is a simple data type that store alphanumeric data. Integer is another variable that store numbers. So in this tutorial we learned two data types, and in next session we will learn other data type. We have learned what is a string variable. Now let's say var string. Use it. We will say string var equals to, we can use anything here. Alphanumeric means alphabets and symbols and numbers. 1 2 3 0 dot, anything you want to write in this data type we can write it, right? If we initialize another variable that say int var, so it's an integer type and it can just store digits, right? Like 2 3 4 5 and so on. When we use the data types, we have to follow the rules of the data types, the limit of data type to store the data. We will discuss it later. What we have done in this playground file, we have created some variable of a string type and integer type. Now let's say we have to print or see this data. We have wrote in this file how to see this, right? We can simple do click here like this, and then we have to just, so it will display the data here also. Let me show you, but right now we have to just print. So look, these variables are showing here: hello, playground, UK sections, like our page, to alphabets and symbols and etc. So if we want to print the value in this empty path, this is known as console. When we run a playground file and we want to see the output, we have to use this console. And how to write some data in this console, we have to just write here print, and in this brackets we have to add a variable or an item that we have to display on the console. So let's say we have to show the channel name, so we just write channel, and then we have to just play it and wait for results. It's running the variable file and it will write here the output. So when it's ready, it will show you ready to continue variables, right? So it's display a string variable UK sections that is stored in this channel variable, right? So when we are talking about variables, we have to just focus on why we use variable to store some data, how to store data in the variables. We have to give a variable name and then provide its value, right? What is the syntax of initializing a variable? The easy way to initialize a variable: give the keyword var, name of the keyword, channel, place here the equals to, which refer to the value, and then present here the value after equals to. So channel can be a string or integer, it depends upon your data type. We can use the channel again to reinitialize this variable. Like if we want to initialize this channel again and say UK sections tutorials, and then we have to print it again. So what it will print? It will print both, but let me show you how it will print. Let me just use this tab and then play, and it will say running variables, and we'll see here the output. So what it did, it shows UK sections, and then it also shows UK sections tutorial, because we have used this print channel before. We are reinitializing the channel variable. So after we initialize, we again print the channel, right? We can say we are reassigning the value to this variable. You can use this variable multiple times. You can use this variable or any variable multiple times. To reassign the value, you have to just use this channel name equals to and the value of same data type. So now what I have to do, I have to create a file, new playground, and blank, next, and the topic is constant and data types, right? Then we will create, and it's created. So let's just remove it and create a constant. So how to initialize a constant? To initialize a constant, we use a keyword let, then we will initialize the variable name, then we will use operator equals to, and then we will type here the value. So let's say the a equals to 12, which indicates it's a number. So when we are using a number, it means the data type is int, right? The int can be positive or negative. What is int? Int is a whole number, right? We use here the whole numbers. So it can be 0 up to any number, right? So what is int? Int is a whole number that contain positive and negative values. So how to know that this is a int? Because we have just input the number. If we input here our dot and say 0, so the data type of this integer will be float. So let's say we assign here and remove this let. So this is the initializing of constant, and the data type we use here is integer, right? Let's say what is let? Let is a simple constant variable. Let is a keyword that describe a constant value. So what is the difference in let and var? The difference in let is we can initialize the value of let once. If the a equals to 12, throughout this tutorial we have to use this 12 in this project, right? If we want to reinitialize the variable a, we can't do it. Let's suppose we are initializing it like this 11, so it will generate an error and say cannot assign to value a is a let constant. Because a is a let constant, it cannot declare any other value until unless you have to initialize it here. If you initialize the value of a equals to 11, it will show you the value is equals to 11 here. Let's print it a, and it will show you the output here that will display a equals to 11. But if we want to reinitialize or reassign the value to this variable, it will reject the. So I think we have covered the topic constant here. What are these? These are the data types. Let's discuss each data type briefly. What is a string? A string is a simple data type that contain text. So we are initializing b with the quotations, and using quotations we have to enter the text here. So let's say hi UK Textions, do subscribe. You can store text in the string variable, right? So let's say we are using here var c equals to 12.0. So what it donates? It donates that we are initializing float variable that contain decimal, right? So what it indicates? That the variable c is a float, right? If we want to learn the d variable, so what we will do, we will just add here. So what it will show? It will say double, and double means long decimal value, right? So if we initialize here e variable, so this means that we are initializing true, and true means that the type of this variable is bool. Bool can be of two types, true or false, like this. So these are the variable we have initialized here. The first one is a string, the second one is float, the third one is double, and the fourth one is bool, and the very first is integer, right? You can initialize these variable like this: var equals to f, and then we indicate here the data type. You can initialize the data types like this, and then we initialize the value here. So let's say like it also. So we can initialize the variable like this. So it will shows the var keyword, the variable name, the data type of the variable, and the value of the variable. So it's an easy way to learn the data types and how to store values in the data type. Can we convert these data type into one another? We can't do this, right? We will learn this in the next tutorial. We have to print these variable one by one. So let's just print the variable like this: print b, then we will print c, then we will print the d value, and the last we will print the value of e. Also we have to print the value by print function. So let's run it and see the results. So these are the output of these variables. So let's start. Open Xcode, go to File, New, open Playground, choose blank, press Next, and now rename the file. Let's say conversion and create. What is conversion? Conversion is a simple way to convert the values of two different data types. So let's say we are initializing here some variables. Let's say var a equals to 12, var b equals to 11, var c equals to high, vars d equals to 12.00 or 0, and var e equals to true. So we have these variables, and let me just add here the .00, right? So each variable is of different type. This is the variable that display that it is an integer. This variable says it is a float or a double. This variable says that it's a string. This variable also indicates that it's a float or maybe a double, and this indicates that it is a bool variable, right? So what we have to do, we have to change the data type of variable a into a string. So what we will do, we will just go with this. So let's say we have to convert the value of a into a string. What we will do, we will type here print, then we will type here a string, open the brackets, these brackets, and now we will just add here a. So what it will print, let me show you. What it shows, the conversion of integer to a string. The value of a will be now like this, a equals to 12, right? What it shows, right, like this. So let's see this another example of double. We have a variable here to a equals to 12, and we have to show the value a equals to 12.0. So what its type now, the type is double, and it say can't assign the value of type double into type integer. So now what we will do, we will just add here int and typecast this value. The value is of double, but now it will show the value equals to 12. So let's just run it and see. Now we have to print it also, right? Print a. Let's just change the value of this 14, and now so it will display the result here. So it shows 14, right? So if we are using this integer function, let's say we are using it 14.5, we have a function here which is mathematic function round, and we have to figure out the round variable of this variable or this value. So what we will do, we will just add here the round function, and then we will typecast or convert this value. So let's run it and see the output. It will display the text equals to 15. Just run it and see the difference, because the round off value of 14.9 is 15, so it displays 15. So let's say we have to change the value of string into integer. What we will do, we will just use a c equals to high. High is a text, right? And we cannot change the value of high into the integer. But if the c is equals to 29, so what we have to do, we have to initialize the value c. Let me print the value, then we will reassign the value of c equals to, now we have to print the value into the integer. So this value 90 is a integer, so it can be changed, right? So let's say int c, so it will convert the value. So it shows a explanation mark that says expression implicitly consists from int to any. It says that the value can be optional. If you print here the values equals to this, let me just hide this value, and now just come in this value, and now what we will do, we will just run it. So it will show you the error because it cannot convert the high value into the integer, so it says null because it can't convert the value of high. But if we reinitialize the value of c equals to integer type but the in a string quotation, so it will convert the value, but it will show this expression which says impression implicitly concerned from int to any. It means that if the value is nil here, what it will display, you have to set the value here. So we will discuss it later. Today we will learn how to use statements in Swift programming language. What are statements and how to declare these statements in Swift using Xcode. So if you are not a subscriber of this channel, please subscribe this channel. Also like our Facebook page, which is UK Textions Tutorial. So let's create a file here, file new, and then playground, right? And then we will hit the blank and next, and here we have to entitle the file name, which is statements. So what I have created here, a file that's name is statement, and now we are removing this code from here. Initialize a variable a equals to 12, and here we just declare a value. What are statements? Statement is a decision making, right? Condition says if a equals to 12, then you have to print this statement. If a equals to 13, you have to print this statement. So what we are doing here, we are making a decision to print a value by checking the conditions or the statement. So what is statement? Decision. So let's start. What is the syntax of if a statement? We type here if, then write the statement here. Let's say a is less than 13, and then we will add here the brackets, and then we will pass here the statement that if this statement is true, print this value. So it prints a equals to 13 because the value of a is less than 13. Apply a statement. If the statement is true, it will print this value, right? What if we have to create else condition or if else? So this is the statement of if statement. The other statements are if else and else. So let's suppose the value of a is 12 and the value is not less than 12. I am changing the condition here, the 13 to 12, and now let's run it and see what it will return. It will return nothing, right? Let's see. So it display nothing. We said if a is less than 12, then print this. Because a is equal to 12, it doesn't print this. So what we will do, now we have to figure out how to write the else condition, else if condition. We say else if a is less than 13, then we have to print the value here, print a. Now what it will return, let's see. We have to return here 12. The condition says if a is less than 12, print this. Because the a is not less than 12, because it's equal to 12, it will print here, it will print nothing in the if condition. So then we decide to add another condition, else if. Like if this condition is not true, use this condition and perform this condition. So it say if a is less than 13, then print this a. So it says a is less than 13 and print 12, right? So this is not the last case. We are now adding here the value equals to 11, right? And we will now say else print value of a is 12, right? So the if condition says it's not less than 12, the if else condition says that it's also not less than 12. Then what it will do, it will print this condition. So let's it will print this statement. So let's run it and see it prints value of a is 12 or not. This is the part 1 of the tutorial of statements. We will continue this tutorial in the next session. We have passed the statement here if and passed the single condition here. We can apply double condition also, that a is less than 12, so display this. Or we can say if a is less than 12, or type or sign, it's an operator, or means this, if this condition not works, try this condition, right? So what we will say, a is, what we will do here, we will type here a is equal to 12, then print this value. So what we have done, we have just type here a is less than 12 or a is equals to 12, then print this a. So let's run and see what it will return. It returned 12, right? So we can use these like this, or we can use this like adding the brackets to it, right? And also adding the brackets to this condition and passing the or in the middle of these two conditions, right? We can add these condition like this, and now we again run it and see what it will show you. It will display 12, right? So this is how we will add the conditions or add the condition in the single statement. If we are using here, I am changing here the value of a equals to 12 to 11 to show you that if we have to add the values, multiple values or multiple statement here, what we will do, right? We say if a is less than or less than equal to 12 and a is less than 13, and is an other operator that used to say that this is the compulsory, that if this condition is true, this condition is also true, then you have to print this statement, right? So let's say it will display correct, both statements are correct. Let's run it and see. So it print both the statements are correct. You can add these statement like this, or you can also add another statement like this is the one condition here, right? This is the all over one condition. What I am doing here, I am creating here an or operator, adding another condition and say or. Let's say that this condition is false. I am adding here less than 12, right? And adding here if a is equal to 12. What it shows that this condition is one condition, right? Because we add here the bracket, starting bracket and ending bracket. This is the one condition, and then we apply here or. We said if this condition is true, print this message. If this condition is true, print this message. But if this statement is false and this statement is true, print this message, right? We can add multiple conditions in a single statement, like we did or operator, and operator, or we can use any assigning operator to identify this condition or the statement is true or false, right? Okay, this is the very basic steps of Swift programming language. We have covered variables, data type, constants and statements. So that's it for today. Hope you will like this video or enjoy this video. You can share your feedback under comment section. If you are not a subscriber of this channel, please subscribe this channel. Also like our Facebook page, which is UK Textions. Stay connected with us. We will be back with amazing Swift tutorials, inshallah. Allah Hafiz. How to use switch statement. So let's start. What is a switch statement? The values of a variable and compare it with the cases. Once the case match found, it will use that case and it will break the statement and then close that thread. So what is the syntax of switch statement? How to use the cases? Let's begin. We will create here a variable I and the value I equals to 20. Right, the syntax of switch is simple. We type here the switch, then we will define the condition what we are trying to search for. So I am searching the value of I here, then we will add here the brackets, curly brackets, and then we will define here the cases. Let's say the case 1 equals says the case equals to 2, and if the value of I is equal to 2, then the case will print the value of I is 2, right? But if the value of I is not 2, then it will move to this case and then search the value of I is 3. But if it doesn't find the value of I is equal to 3, then it will move to this default case, and default mean if any of the condition doesn't match, move to this default and says print didn't found the value of I. So what we will do, we will just run this code and see what it returns. So it's running the statements. So it says didn't found the value of I. So let's try another example of a switch statement. Let's say I am initializing a let C equals to apple, and then I will use here the switch statement, and then this is the pattern of switch statement. I am just using here the value C, right? The pattern of cases is I am here adding the quotations and search banana, right? And the code is print value of C is banana, right? Then if it doesn't matches the code, it will print fail to found the value of C, right? So let's run it and see the condition returns. Say C, it say failed to found the value of C. If I wrote here apple, what it will do, it will return the value of C is, let me correct it, apple. So it will print here the value of C is apple. The value of C is apple, right? So these are the statements, and we have covered the chapter of statements. So let's discuss what is the topic of today. Today we will learn what are loops and how to use loops in Swift programming language. So loop means repetition. So why we use loops in Swift programming language? Write a condition to print something repeatedly 5 times or 10 times or 20 times, or perform a certain task for 20 times. So we use loop. Loops can be for loop, while loop and do while loop. In this tutorial we will discuss the basic one, for loop. For, we define here a variable indexed, then we will define here n. N means in this loop what we are performing here, a range of number will be print from 1 to 5. We are printing here the index, right? So let's just run it and see the results. What it does, it just print here the numbers from 1 to 5. So the loop started from 1 and ends at 5, right? So another example is, so define an array. Let's say fruits equals to, I'm defining here array, simple apple, mango, grape. What I'm doing here, I'm typing here for fruit. Fruit is a variable in which we are finding fruit like this, and we will add here the brackets and then type here the condition. What is the condition? Print fruit. Now let's see what it will print. So what it says, fruit is apple, fruit is mango, fruit is grape, right? How many times this loop prints? The size of array is 1, 2 and 3. So the loop runs for 3 times. So let's try another example. For example, var sum equals to 0, and we will use here for a in 1 up to 5, and the range is 1 up to 5, and will print here the value of sum, right? But for this we have to just add the value of sum with letter A, right? So A is equal plus sum equal to sum plus the value of A, right? The value of A is index, and the index may change after each iteration, right? So what we will do, we will just print the value of sum in this for loop, right? So let's run it and see. So what it say, 1, 3, 6, 10 and 15. So it's sum the value with sum plus A, and you can also do this. You can add here any other number or use any variable over here to sum of the values. Hope you all guys like it. If you like this, simply hit the like button, and if you want to ask something, you can ask on comment section. Also, please, if you are not a subscriber of this channel, please subscribe it so I can be a voice for the world. So I clearly define what is for loop. In any programming language, the for loop is same, the syntax is different. And today we will learn how to use while loop. What is the syntax of while loop? Because loops are always same, but the conditions and the syntax are different and the type is different. So let's see how to use while loop. We will type here while, and let's initialize the variable count equals to 0. Then while count is less than 10, we use brackets here and add here condition print variable count, right? And then we have to increment the value using count plus 1. So this is the easiest example in any programming language, and that's right. So what it will do, it print the count from 0 to 10. So let's see what it will return. So what it prints the count value. So let's say we have to use a loop that will never end. So we use here true condition, the loop will never end, and we will print here print I am alive, right? So it's printing alive, I am alive, alive, I am alive multiple time, right? Infinite time up till loop. While using while true means we are using an infinite loop. So I don't want to use it for now. So let's say I'll use here a bar variable is true and then equals to true, right? So just define here is true, right? And then we will change here the value is true equals to false, right? So just run it and let's see the result. So what it did, it just return I am alive when it's returned and the value of true is true is false, then the loop is exit, right? So we can use while loop as an infinite loop also, like if is true is equals to false, right? So what it will do, we have just simply write here the condition that if is true means true is equals to true, then you have to run the while loop. If the condition is equal to false, what it will do, it will never run the condition, it will never run this loop, right? So let's see what it will do. It doesn't run this loop because the condition is false. So what I'm trying to say, there is a loop which repeats and repeat like this. We define here the statement and while is true like this. This is the condition, and we are trying here to not to use loop if the condition is true is equals to false. So let's try this condition and we will print here print I am alive from repeat loop like this. So condition is false, right? The condition is false but the value is true, so it will print this line once and then will never run this loop. So let's try this and see what it will return. Or I just forgot to mention here the false also right here, and if the value of false is this, so the I am alive will never print, but the I am alive from repeat will run. Okay, so what it print I am alive from a repeat loop, right? The condition is while we tried both condition. In while loop we just use if it's true is false, then print this, but in repeat loop we says the statement is this, if the condition is this, then print it infinitely, right? So it never print this statement, but it prints this statement because repeat says that print or do this job or once and then allow this condition by using this while loop. So let's start using how to initialize an array. What is array? Array is a simple collection of data followed by some indexes, right? So I'm initializing here, this is the syntax of defining an array. Var is the keyword, array is a variable name, then equals to, and we define the array's values in square brackets, right? So I'm using here string variable, you defining John. This is the first array of this tutorial. Then Jack, then we initialize here Tim, and then Jerry. So this is the full syntax of defining an array. Add more values in this array. So let's just add more values to it. Let's say how to add the values in this array. We have to use the keyword append. Then we just have to add the value. So let's say Jan, right? So we added a value of Jan in this array. First use array count to let us know how many values are stored in this array. So let's just run it. It will show you here the count is 5. 0. So whenever we initialize an array, the first index of the array started from 0, right? So 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4, but the values are 5. So let's just count the values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The array indexes started from 0, that is why the array index at the gen is 4, but the values are stored in this array are 5. How to print an item of an array? So what we have to do, we just write array, then define the array brackets, and then whatever index we have to insert up till 0 to 4, we just add here. Like I want to just get the result of index 2, so it will print the index 2, which is Tim, right? So it prints Tim. 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4, but the values are 5. Now let's suppose I have an array. I am using another array which is named as empty, and now what I have to do, I have to initialize an array. We have to define the type of array when the array is empty. So let's just append values to it. Let's say 22, then you can also do it as plus equals to, and add item like this. Now let's just get the count of this array first, then we will just print any of the index of empty array, right? So let's just print an item of empty. Let's suppose we are using 3, and now let's run it and see. So now what we are doing here, we are just iterating the array using for loop. So the first we have to define here for item, and now we have to define here in 0, the index started from 0 till the count value of array started from 0, right? The range is 0 less than empty dot count. So what it will do, it will run this loop from 0 till the count. The count of the array is 5 and 5 like this, and this range started from 0 to 5, so it will print like this. Now what we have to do here, we just print here value in at item is empty item, like this. So let's run it and see the result. So what it prints, value at 0 is 22, value at 1 is 33. So let's just dry run this. So first value is 22 here, then the 33, then, and what it prints at 0 it's 22, at 1 it's 33, at 2 it's 44, and so on. So let's begin. What is dictionary? Dictionary is a simple key value pair in which we store value by using keys, right? In previous tutorial we used arrays, and in arrays we store values on index basis, right? In this dictionary we use keys to store some values. So let's initialize type var, the name of the dictionary. Let's say I have a dictionary of user, right? And user have many things to save. So let's say we initialize it like this dictionary, then we have to use brackets, then we have to define here data type, right? The values and the keys have some data type, so we have to define that data type, right? So we initialize here the user dictionary. The key is of a string and the value is of also a string. So let's say if we want to store a key in a string but the value in integer, we can use it. So I'm using here a string data type, right? So now how to initialize the data in this user dictionary, right? So we type user, then start square bracket and end square bracket. Now we put here the key first, right? So let's say at 0 the value of user is Aman. Then so we initialize 0 to 4 values in the dictionary. Now let's say if this dictionary has 4 values or 5 values, how to print them, right? So let's say I'm printing here the value of user 1, and here I also want to define the default value. See this, there is an error. What it says, expression implicitly concedes from a string to any, right? What it says if the user is dictionary have a key that have no value, what it will return. So we have to pass here default value. So how to pass default value? Double question mark and just type here the value, like I am using m. But if so, let me copy this and show you why I use this optional function. Because so let's say if key is equal to 5, here I will just Homera, right? So what it will display, the user don't have any key 5. So what it will display, we will see both. The first one is Samina, because we have stored here the 1 equals to Samina, but 5 is not present in this user dictionary, so it prints here Homera. So let me also show you, if you don't use this default function, what it will do, it will do nothing but just it will show nil, right? So let's say at 6th key what it will print. So let's just see that it print nil, right? So this is why I am using here optional. So if we want to remove a value of, if we want to remove a key from the user, what we will do, we will just type here user, then the key, like I am using here 0 key, and then what I will do here, I will just type here nil. So it's a simple way to remove that key value pair from the dictionary, right? So if we want to use here a for loop to iterate the values of dictionary, what we will to just use here, like let's just say that we have key and value, or we can say keys and values, then in what we will add here user, and then we will just simply print here key is keys and value is values, right? So let's run it and result. So here is the way to iterate the dictionary using for loop. So hope you will. So what I said earlier, I said we can use this dictionary or initialize this dictionary in another way also, right? So we can initialize it like this: var font and equals to, then start and end the square bracket, then we have to define the type of the key and then the colon and the key type. This is the data type of key and this is the data type of value, and I just forgot here to mention here the brackets. Now let's just add a single value like Samsung equals to, and the model is A72, right? So then I have to just show you the print add optional because it's mandatory to follow some rules, right? So let's say Motorola. Now let's run and see the results. So let's begin. What is function? Function is a simple block of a code we define inside any playground file or a stack. So what is function? Function is a simple block of code that defines lots of variables functionality inside the scope. What is the syntax of a function? So we have to type here func, F-U-N-C, and then we have to type here simple method name or a function name which we will call later in this playground file. So let's say what's your name. This is the name of the function, and then we use here the brackets which are round brackets, and then the scopes. This is the starting scope and this is the ending scope. So what is function? Function is a block of code that have some properties or variables or functionalities stored inside this scope. So this is the scope, right? Now let's describe here a variable name. Let's suppose the name is equals to Uruj. Now I will print the variable name, right, like this. And let's say I want to call this function. What I will do in this playground, I will simply just type what's your name, and that's it. Let's run it and see the results. So it's print here Uruj. What if I need this variable outside this function? Can I use this name? Let's say name equals to ABC, and then so what it says that it can't find name variable inside this file. Why? Because it's defined under the scope of function, right? What if I just place it outside the function, what it will do? Let's see. Let me cut it, and now I have to just paste it out, and then this name can be accessible by this method and also by this file, because it's inside this scope of the class which is playground, function playground. So name can be accessible inside the method or a function or outside the function. But if I use this keyword or variable, if I use this variable outside this playground file, it can't found this variable, right? What if I need the value of this method to print outside or to use somewhere in the program? What I will do? So these methods can be known as return methods, right? We have to return some value from that method. So what technique we have to use? Let's see. Get your name. This is the name of the function. Then we define the round brackets and then the scope. But then in the middle of this, we have to describe here the return type of the variable. I have to return a variable, and the type of the return is string, right? What I will do here, I will say return name. right? And now I have to change the value of name here. The name value is equal to z. So I have returned the variable name and name value is equal to z. What if I defined a variable that contain this method as a variable? So what I will do, I will just add here variable get name and then equals to, because the type of the method is a string, so I have to declare the variable of a string, right? So then what I have to do, just get your name as this, and now what I will do, print this variable which is get name, right? I'll just print this method. I didn't use print function here, but I did use the print function here. So let's see what it will return, right? So let's see. Let me just erase it and then again try to return, because I mentioned the name as ABC, so this is why it's returning that value. So now it will return Uruj and Z. So Uruj is defined in what's your name and Z is defined in what gets your name, right? To get value from this method, and then we print the get name in this print function. So hope you will understand what is function, and later on we will describe how to use parameters, what are parameters in function and how to use them.
So let's begin. Whenever we want to describe a function, we have to use keyword func. Then we have to define the name of the function set user, and then we have to define here parenthesis and then these curly brackets. In previous tutorial I said I will describe the use of this parenthesis. So today is the day when I define the use of this parenthesis, right? So we use these parentheses to define the parameters. What are parameters? Parameters are simple variables that are used to pass some values inside the method, right? From where we will access these parameters, we'll let you know shortly. So let's create our first parameter. And how to create a first parameter, we have three requirements. First one is argument label, then the variable name and the variable type. So let's define it. The argument label is equal to label 1, then what is the variable name is equals to name, and the type of variable is a string, right? So I define here the first parameter, which is label 1, the parameter name is name, and then the data type is a string. So let's just print here the name. What we have to type here, if I type here label, what it will display nothing, but if I use here name, it will return the variable, right? So this is the purpose we use variable name here like this. Now if I want to use here set user name, so when we call here a method, the parameters will be described as label 1, and then we have to define here the value. So let's say we are defining here Uruj. So let's just run it and see the result. So this is the result. What if I don't use the argument label and just define here the parameter like this? What it will, we have to create here another function, and for this we will say use set user age, variable name, and then just the type of the parameter, and then we'll print here age like this, set user age. Then what I'll get here, because the label is not here, what it will return, let's see. So it's returning the variable name. So let's say the age of the user is 20. Now let's see what it will return. So it returns to setting the parameters using function by two scenarios, using argument label. Let me just add here argument label, and without argument. So let's try parameter using return function, right? So what we will do here, we will just type here func, then get user phone number, and then what we will do here, I'll just add this and number, then integer, and then I'll type here the return type integer, and then what I'll do here, I'll just type here return number, right, like this. Now I'll print here get user phone number, and the phone number is equal to 1 again, and let's print it. So this is how we can use parameter. Let's see another example of using multiple parameters and returning some data from that parameter. Set user address like this. So what I will do here, I'll do address 1 equals to string, then comma. If we have to define another parameter, we add here comma, then address 2, that can be a string type, or you can say a zip if you want to define the zip code. So let's just add here zip code, right, like this, and this type should be integer. I am using different types, so you will get how to define multiple parameters of different data types, and then we'll just add here return type string, right, and that's it. So after defining parameter, we have to return the values, and let's say address plus the zip code. The zip code is of another type, so let's just typecast this variable of a string, and then what I will do here, I'll just add here a variable of address equals to set user address ABC street, and the zip code will be 00, and then just print the address, and let's see what it will return. So this is how we use parameters in functions to pass some values in the function.
So let's begin. What is a class? Class is a simple blueprint or a prototype. You can say a container that contains multiple variables or methods, etc. What is the syntax of a class? So let's create a class. The syntax of a class is we use keyword class, then the name of the class, which is I'm creating a user class, so my class name is user. Then this is the curly brackets that we have to use to specify the scope of the class. So this is the simple syntax of a class, right? So let's create some variables and set some data using this class, right? Now I'm creating here some methods so that we have to set the values and get the values of that particular variable from another method. Func set name, and then what we have to do here, I have to just define here name and then string, right, like this. So let's use self keyword, and then we have to use this variable which is name, get the value from this name.
So what I have done here, I have called this self keyword to get the name variable which is defined here in the class, and then I have passed the reference of this particular parameter to store the value in this variable. So let's get the value of that particular name, and I have to define here the return type, which is a string, and then the brackets, and then I have to just return name. So this is the way to define some methods or variable inside the class. If I have to access these variables outside the class, what I will do, let's see. If I want to print here name variable, can it print? No, the variable can't found. It will give an error. Can't find name in the scope because this variable is defined under the scope of user. So what I have to do here, I have to declare here an object of a class. So how to create an object of a class? I have to just initialize a variable and say user equals to user, like this. Now user keyword will get the address, age, get name, set name, or any variable inside this class. So let's say I'm setting here a name, and then what I will do, let's see, I'm typing here root, and then what I will do here, print user dot get name, and then let's just run this code. So what it returns? It returns root. So let's see what I have done here. First of all, I create here an object of a user and store in this variable user. Second, I call this variable and then set a name of a user which is known as root. Let's jump to this method. This method is used to store a simple name and pass this reference to this main variable which is defining here. After that, I just create another method and return this name, which is the main variable of this class. And then I print here this method which is getName. So in getName, I'll get the value root. So what is a class? Class is a simple prototype. If we leave an empty class, the class is nothing without variables or methods. But if we perform some task inside class, it's a valuable class. It has some data. So today's topic is about class, how to create variables, their initializers, how to override a method, how to extend a class in a class. So let's begin. First of all, let's just initialize class person brackets. Now initialize variable name, type will be string, then var age, type will be int. So I created here two variables, but the error goes here, class person has no initializer. So in previous tutorial I initialize variables and their default values. But in this tutorial, we have to learn about initializers. So what are initializers? Initializers are simple to initialize some values in the variables that are created in the class. So let's just create an initializer. Type here init. Then we have to just pass the variables that you can say parameters, string, and the other one is age. Then what to do? Self dot name equals to name, and then self dot age equals to age. So this is how initializers are created in a class. We can define or initialize values as default by initializers or by simple using optional. So now what's next? Let's just call this object p equals to person. After creating an object, it says missing arguments or parameters, name and age in the call, right? So what we have created here, an initializer. It means that whenever we use an object of a class, we have to describe here the values here like this, age and name. So let's just add here name equals to Samina and then age equals to 20. Now just print the variables like object p dot name and then print p dot age. So this is how to create an initializer of a class and then call that object by defining the values of those variables. So let's just run it and see the result. Samina and age is 20. So next is, let's just create here another class, user. And I need these variables inside the user class. What if I just use this person class? I don't want to recreate these variables and initializers. So what I will do here, I'll just extend by giving colon and typing here person. So this is how a property of person are now accessible by the user class. This is called inheritance and this is also called extend class or driver class. So now what I'll do here, I just copy this and paste it over here. Also delete this class and type here user. Now the object can be you and paste here you. Run it and see what it returns. So what is the result? So what does it mean? Because we extend the class of person, we can access this method or variables. If I need to initialize a variable inside this class, I have to create an initializers or what I'll have to do. But what if I need to initialize a different variable inside user class? What complication will come up to me? So now let's just initialize here a variable address colon string. So now what I have to define here, initializers. Initializers basically name first of all, then age, which is integer, and then third one is address, which is also a string. So now what I have to do is delete this statement and first I have to just type here self dot address equals to address. Then what I have to do here, I have to pass here the values of this method to this method. Then what I have to do here, I will call here super dot init and then pass here the values, which is name and simple age. So what is this mean? Super.init means that the method is now accessible by this class will pass on the values to this init function. So now what I have to add here, just an address ABC. I just forgot to mention address here, so now just u dot address. And now
Just run it and see the results. So this is how we use initializers in a class. Here is the result, Uruj 20 and ABC. This is name, this is age, and this is address. So what's next? The next one is how to use a function or override the functionality of a method in another class, in a derived class. So let me just create here a function. Let me just create here a function is alive. This is a function, and then I'll say print yes, I am alive. So what I have to do here, I have to just call this function here in my class. So what I will do here, just see. I'll type here override, and then function, override function, and then is alive. So what I did here, I just override the function of this class, and it says present here some code. So let's say super dot alive. Super means calling the super class function in this method. So now what I will do here, I'll say u dot function is alive, and let's run it. Yes, I'm alive. So what if I had some functionality of my own by calling this method? Like if I'm calling a function of clicking a button, but I have to do certain tasks in that function, or printing a name, or calculating some functions or variables or anything. So what I'll do here, I'll just go with print name, and then just run it. So what it will do, it will print this code and this code also. So now just call this function and see the results. So it says root, yes, is I'm alive. The purpose we use class is to create valuable data. So this is how classes work. So our next chapter is structs, and then the last one is closures. So basically, structs are the complex data type by Swift programming language to choose in between classes and struct. They says choose the first choice of structs because they store data efficiently, and because the structs are value type, not the reference type, because classes are reference type, and moreover structs are more faster than classes. So let's discuss more about struct by following the practical approach. So the structs syntax is same as class. So we have to just type here struct, then the name of that particular struct, then brackets, which is curly brackets, and now we have to initialize some variable or some method also. So let's just quickly create some variables like string, like name, var age. So in classes, find a variable, we have to define the initializers like equals to this or equals to that, whatever. But in struct, we don't have to define any initializers. By default, we don't need to initialize like this, right? So what we have to do is, now let's just see, if I create here an object of that particular struct, what I will get. So let's see, person equals to person. So I initialize here a object of a person. It says that you are missing here the parameters of name and age in this calling, when we are calling this person object. So what we have to do is we have to initialize it like this. Structs make the initializers by default for its variable. So likewise, we have to just define here the values. And now in the beginning of the video, I describe here that structs are value type. What is the difference of value type or reference type? Let me just describe it right here. Let's suppose I have a variable here and say person A equal to person. Person is a variable that is defined over here, which is this. And I just copy the person variable in person A. So what I have to do here, I just want to print here person dot name, and here I will just change the value of person A dot name equals to UK Textions tutorial like this, and also print here, also printing here person dot name. So let's just print it and see whether the person A changes the value inside the person A and also in person. So what it does, it didn't change the value of this variable which is contained UK sections, but rather than this, it just create the copy of this variable and store the value in this variable person A dot name. What is the difference in reference and value? The reference means that you are just referring a variable and containing the particular reference to it. So let's see another example why we use structs rather than classes. So let's just create here a class and say person class like this. And similarly, what I will do here, var name string. Now it's asked me for the initializer. Let's just wait for it in C. It says person has no initializer. So I have to define here the initializer like that, or I have simply init and then create here name string and then self dot name equals to name. Now let's just also define here a variable of age. Equate here age int, and likewise here self dot age equals to age. Now what I will do here, I will create here two variables. Like the first one is person class equals to person class, and here I want to define the name equals to UK Textions and age equals to. Then what I will do here, I will copy this variable of person class into person class A, and now person class equals to this. Now let's just print here the person class dot name, and similarly print here person dot class dot name equals to UK tutorial. I'm changing here the value in person class a dot name, right? And then I will just printing here these like person class a and person class dot name. So let's just see what it will return. So what it does, it's just change the value of person name. However, I just change the name in person class A, but it changes the value also in person class because it's a reference type. Whatever you change in the person class A, you directly changing the text or data in person class as well, because the class is referring your personal class variable. So this is how structs and class work. Classes are mostly used to inherit some functionality from other part of the classes. Let's create another struct and say human and then bracket, and now I have to inherit person. So it will never give me a chance to inherit, because inherit from non-protocol type person, because structs can't be inherit by another struct or another class like say class. So it will not allow us to inherit the class as well. But what if I do here person or say the class type, and now I can able to inherit the classes via classes. So this is how classes need to be used for. Whenever we use to in between classes or struct, we have to use structures for storing the values and returning the methods from them. And whenever we use to inherit something from another class of, so we use classes. So this is how we use classes and structs. So this lecture is about more about structs. So let's just discuss more about structs and remove this. Now I have to just show you about the function, how to use function in Swift structs. Like this, I have just declare here a func keyword, and now I have to say display name, and then just like this print self dot name, like this. So this is how we can use a method also. And now what I have to do is person dot display name, and it will print the message over here. Let's see. So this is how we can use functionality in structs. So there is another property, or you can say here is another method or a function that allow us to change the member variable of this struct, or change the value of that particular struct variable, like mutating function. Mutating function is to change the object value, like I'm just giving here changing object value like this, and the default value of the name variable, which is defined here in the struct as UK Techians YouTube channel. And now just display here the method of person dot name, but after just changing here the value of mutating channel name, let me just add here print function. And so now just call person dot changing object value, and now get person dot name. So it's just change the name of the value of the name inside this method, and now the person name is let me just print it like this and print under the console, and now run it and see the result. It says Detections YouTube channel, which is defined here in under the changing object value. We can change the value of the name variable or any variable in the mutating function. So we basically use mutating function to change the object values or member variables of that particular object. We use closure because it's a self-contained block of code. You can say we don't need to define a keyword like function. To define a variable, we have to use the data type like a string. For the closures, we don't need to describe the keyword. So this is why it says self-defined code. So this is the first simple example of a closure. We defined the curly brackets. Inside this, we just defined a statement. This is the statement, and this is called closures, right? There is a error that says closure expression is unused because this closure is unused and we have to use it. We should use it or initialize under the variable. So now we are initializing a variable like printing equals to this, and to call this variable we have to call it like the method with the parenthesis. And now what we have to do is just call it, and the high is here, a special type of a function. The basic example is right here in front of your screen, and the complex will discuss in this tutorial. Why we use closures? Because we have to make our code reusable and make it more easy and simple. That is why we use closure. The first example is, the basic one is this. The syntax of the closure is, let us suppose we are initializing a name, and here we are defining the closure with a parameter. To define a parameter under a closure, we have to define the parentheses. In these parentheses, we have to define the parameter. Like I'm creating a string variable, and then I have to create a wall between the statement and the parameter, and I'm drawing a keyword in as a wall between the parameter and the statement. Now the statement is print, typing here the name is and the name. So this is the syntax of a closure with a parameter. The in is a separator between the statement and the parameter. So the wall is because we are defining here some parameter, and then a separator, and then the statement. So this is the syntax of a closure with a parameter. So now just call this name function, or sorry, name closure, and run this. The other difference between the function and the closure is we don't need to define the parameter like this, that we are using here the name like this. We don't need to do this, only the value of that parameter, the value inside the quotations. So the name is UK Detections. So this is how a closure defined well. This is the actual syntax to create closure and to call the closure. So let's just run it and see the result. Name is recollections. So another example is with the return type. Now just create here the age, and for this I'm just creating here the parameter of integer type, and return type will be same as the initialization type, and the type here is integer. Then in is the reference to this closure, and then just return the age. Now what I will do here is print age. Age is the closure and the value of closure is 1, like this. And now just run and see the result. So it says age is 1, like this. What about if I stat that function can also creates a closure inside itself? So just create a function, and I'm creating here a let keyword because it will show me an error of that the variable can't be changed. So this is why I'm just creating a let keyword. So now that I'm just creating a simple closure, I'm printing here the greetings, warm wishes, like this. Or you can also use the parameter here. I'm not using any parameter. Then what I have to do is just call this greeting inside the function, and now just call get info, and now just run it and see the result. Warm wishes. The closure inside the function run like this. Now what about I will define the closure as a parameter inside the function. Now, so I'm creating here the closure first, and then I will create another parameter if like a string variable. So first of all, I am creating here a closure. Let's suppose ABC, then colon. I have to define here the syntax to define the closure like this. This is the proper syntax to define a closure as a parameter inside a function. This is the way, right? Because the closure should define with this curly bracket with these parentheses. So we are defining here like this, right? It is the reference type of something you are defining a closure. Then I am creating here a message. The type will be string. And now let's see what I will do is print the message first. The message will be derived from this method. And then the closure ABC like this. And now just call the closure like closures like this. So this is about the closure. We defined here the type. We can code here the closure. This is how we define the closure inside the function, and we have to define the working of the closure like this. If I have to print the something like hey closure from inside func, and the message is as a parameter. As a parameter. So let's just run this and see. So this is the message is as a parameter, hi, hey, closure inside the function. So this is how closures works without any function. The closure, simple closure is this one with the parameter, with the return type, inside the function without any parameter, and as a parameter. So this is how we use closure in Swift programming language. Hope you will like this tutorial. If you like this tutorial, hit the like button, also hit the subscribe button. Also, you can register our free 40 days challenge for iOS development. It's a free course for all the subscribers.